Dan Smith, Bastille's Dan Smith, comes on to tell us about his documentary film, which we've all seen and loved. I mean, listen, if you're a fan of Bastille, you're going to love it. You've got to watch that. If you've got time to watch it before he comes on, that would be great. Probably not, but if you haven't, then watch it this weekend. So it is all about the music today, and Dan from Bastille is about to join us to talk to us about the documentary which we've all watched and all love, called ReOrchestrated. But and often when these bands come in on Chris's show, their cover, whatever they've chosen to be their cover, is often the most moving part of it, because you know that they've chosen something that they buy into and that they love. So when Dan and Bastille came in...
Which one? Because we've got two, haven't we?
I Will Survive.
Oh, yes.
Are you happy with that? You can't have the other one, because I've got I Will Survive lined up now. It was just fabulous.
Because they play with it, don't they? They really play with it.
They really do. Here it is. Enjoy this, and we'll chat to Dan after this.
Surviving.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on.
Ridiculous.
Isn't it? I mean, not that we need to hear from Simon Cowell, but you really made that your own. Dapper Dave, I think we all know who's coming up, but introduce our final guest, please.
If you like your pop music catchy, credible and cool, then look no further than our next guest. Bastille's feature-length tour documentary ReOrchestrated is available now on Amazon Prime Video. And here to tell us how they've quite literally added some strings to their bow is the really quite marvellous Dan Smith!
Dan Smith! Morning, Dan!
That was the best introduction I've heard. I can't believe you're the first person that I've spoken to who thought to say that. That was brilliant.
Yes! You've done it, Dave. You can retire happy. Dan, we've all seen ReOrchestrated. Whether you're a fan of Bastille, super fan of Bastille, or you just like their music, the one thing that we've all fallen more for you as a band and as people, because you were so honest and so raw in it. But can you tell us how it all came about? Because obviously you can't just walk into a room with 50 musicians and go, guys, start playing and we'll sing along. How on earth do you make this kind of thing happen?
Well, we did. We a few years ago we were asked to do a charity show for a charity called Streets of London in a little church in North London, and I thought we just wanted to do something special with it. So we decided to completely make it really easy for ourselves and completely change and basically orchestrally remix all of our songs. So we worked with a couple of friends, a little gospel choir, and some strings musicians and brass, and we basically just flipped all of our songs on their heads. And I got so obsessed with how that gig went that I sort of got it in my head that we should do it on a bigger scale. And so, kind of challenged everyone we worked with to help us make it happen on a tour around the UK and Europe with an orchestra, finishing in the Royal Albert Hall, which, it was one of the most amazing gig nights of our lives. But I think for everyone that works with us was like, why are you doing this? You're like in the midst of your second album going into a third.
Yes.
You're like, yes. A kind of rock band, I guess, in some people's eyes or whatever. Like, you don't need to do this. It's a kind of strange thing to voluntarily take on. But it was just something that we felt really passionately about. And it kind of ended up last year with this show in Hamburg with a 50-piece orchestra and a 12-piece choir, and just these completely mad, different symphonic versions of our songs that I don't know. It was the most kind of. I'm not very good at talking about what we do in a positive way, but it was the most like affecting thing for us that I feel like we've ever done. And it was just a real like bizarre labour of love. And our friend Tom, sorry for talking so much. Our friend Tom basically is a mate. He used to live with Kyle. He was his housemate when we first started out as a band, and he started making films about us as a uni project. And he basically never left. So for 8 years. He's just been on the road with us, collecting footage, a lot of which will hopefully never, ever, ever see the light of day. But he just had all this stuff, and then we wanted to celebrate these mad gigs we were lucky enough to do. And that's where this film kind of came out of.
Please never apologise for talking too much. That's why we want you on. People want to hear from you, not from us. But Dan, what I loved about it is I loved its rawness and its honesty, because I know that you were filmed individually as well as together, and this probably enabled you to be more open and honest about each other and about your feelings and what have you. We were talking about, there's one bit in there about Kyle fearing that he wasn't good enough as a pianist, so he went off and had piano lessons. And as a band, you didn't just boot him out and say, which obviously most bands would do. We all know how ruthless the music industry is. They would just boot them out, and you said, no, you go and have some piano lessons and then come back, and we're keeping it.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's as a sort of film technique, I guess. Tom, who knows us really well, and Toby, who we worked with on it, who directed it, who we don't know at all. We do now, obviously, but they sort of felt like taking us all separately and interviewing us and asking us just to be a bit more honest than we normally are. Because it's like in kind of when we're promoting songs or doing interviews, like we're not guarded, but there's a lot of stuff you're just not going to talk about imposter syndrome on like a breakfast show or whatever. It's just not that interesting for people. But we just felt like with this film, the idea of a moderately successful band doing a gig that went really well with the big orchestra, that's not a particularly interesting story, and to try and say something that was worth saying for people who may not like our music. And it was more about trying to make a film about creativity and about the sort of struggles of that, and about imposter syndrome, how weird it is to be in a band, how lucky we are, but also the sort of the kind of struggles that come with it, and stage fright, all those things. I guess we didn't realize it would become a film about that. And I think it's a much more kind of nuanced and interesting film than just a concert movie or whatever. So I think they did an amazing job. And I think a lot of that's down to us as a band not really having any editorial control. We sort of just sat back and let them sift through everything and decide what would be the most sort of interesting, inclusive tale to tell.
Talking about your early struggles, you tell the story about when before we'd all heard of you, before we'd have all heard of Bastille, you'd borrow a van and drive 4 hours to a gig, and there'd be 8 people in the audience, and drive 4 hours back. And I was just sort of wondering as I was watching that, what was the conversation like in the van on the way back? Did anyone ever say, do you know what, it might be time to stop?
It's so weird. I guess the first few years of being in a band, and even before we started the band, when I was playing by myself and kind of dragging around an electric piano up and around the tube network of London with big bags of stuff, and turning up and playing in a pub to like 7 friends who I dragged there after work or whatever, there's an element of that that's kind of really humiliating and a bit embarrassing, but there must be something in it, the way you must just love music, or the idea of making music so much. And that's just what you do. On the way back from Wrexham, we were probably all... Can you imagine how deflated we must have been? Particularly given that Kyle and Will can't drive, so they were like, well, we're out of this. And they're probably just sleeping in the back seat underneath like a piano and a guitar amp. And then there's just Woody and I in the front, probably trying to be positive, like, it'll be all right. Maybe one day this will be a job. But yeah, it's just really surreal watching the film back and seeing those days that felt kind of never ending, and the idea that so much has happened in between, it still is, doesn't quite feel like real life to us. But yeah.
Oh, come here, Amelia. Thanks, buddy.
I was going to say, I watched the film last night with my housemate, who's a huge Bastille fan, and she said at one point there was no interview on the internet that she hadn't watched of you guys, but yet she still learnt so much about the band that she didn't know through the documentary. But also, it sounds like, as you weren't particularly hands-on with the making of it, is the things you learnt about your bandmates that you didn't know previously, or you saw it from a different perspective, perhaps?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm sure there... it's probably an interesting insight into what working with myself is like. But I think the main thing for me was Kyle, this kind of narrative that emerges about Kyle's insecurities. I think he probably plays down how good he is, but there was a point towards the beginning where I think we were having quite a lot of fun, and our manager at the time basically said he's not good enough, and he should maybe get someone else in the band, and he was our friend, and he was someone that we toured with, and it just didn't even occur to me that would be a thing. So we had to have this kind of weird relationship chat of like sitting him down, the 4 of us, and being like, dude, is there any way you could, and we're obviously not good at confrontation, in the most British awkward way, like, is there any way you could maybe get a bit better at the thing that we're trying to all do? Can you imagine that chat? Oh my God. But he
we all want to say that to Vassos, but we just can't.
The way that he took it, and the way that he then just, he didn't tell anyone he was having, he went and had lessons from loads of different people, and he'd practice, and he, like he says, he'd come to rehearsals way before and leave way after. And I guess that's just something that we take for granted. But to see him talk about it, and to hear that those insecurities obviously were brought out by then plonking him on stage in a symphony hall with a huge orchestra and loads of like virtuosic musicians, obviously that's going to bring that back up to the surface. So it was kind of interesting to hear that. And also just, as friends and people who work together, we don't really sit around like self-analyzing ever, and we don't really look back that much. So it was kind of, particularly last year in the midst of lockdowns, it was just really amazing and confronting to, I guess, have to look back at everything that had happened that we maybe hadn't appreciated as much.
Maybe other bands could learn from you. You know, maybe there's all sorts of groups who work together could learn from this. You know.
Yeah, maybe.
I bet it was cathartic. Dan, is it fair to say that any piece of music, any track ever, could be improved if an orchestra was performing along or behind it?
So I don't know. I think maybe. I mean, like. I'm for some reason the only thing that popped into my head just then was Baby Shark, which I can't. I don't know how that. But I've probably been hanging out with my nephew too much. But maybe. I always think when we do covers, and we love to do covers, you know, on our mixtapes and whenever we do sessions, and take music that people maybe don't respect enough or that is kind of seen as disposable, and by rejigging it and kind of representing it in a different way, I think it can really add weight to something. And definitely if you stick an orchestra behind something, it just really, the sense of like gravitas that comes with, maybe it's knowing that there's that many actual people on stage who know what they're doing, that really just lifts it, you know, in such an amazing way. Well, also, I've got to mention like Johnny who did the arranging. He's a mate of ours who's in a band called Public Service Broadcasting, and he's toured with us for years as a trumpet player. So to kind of realise when we asked him to do this that he was in secret like an absolute genius when it came to arranging and the things that he brought to it in terms of, it's not just like we like stuck some strings on Bastille tracks. These are completely rethought, reimagined, totally upside down versions, and he just did such an amazing job. So that's been a real kind of like amazing thing to see in a friend as well.
Oh, Dan, I could talk to you for 12 hours, drinking beer and talking about how this all came about. I've thoroughly enjoyed our chat together. We've only got 15 minutes left of the show, but what we will do is we'll play... No. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Stop apologising for talking too much. We love hearing from you. But let's play your favourite reorchestrated track. We're going to play Good Grief. Why?
Well, yeah, so again, I'm not quite sure why this got picked, but sure. I don't know why this got chosen, but it's probably really great, so enjoy it.
Okay. I thought it was your favourite. Here it is. All right, Dan. Well, thanks for coming on the show, mate. Take care of yourself. Thank you so much. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Cheers, buddy. Bye. ReOrchestrated is available now on Amazon Prime Video. You will love it. ReOrchestrated tells you the story of Bastille. It's not just about the reorchestration of their tracks, it's also about their entire life. It's a fabulous documentary. It's an hour long. Whether if you're a mega fan of Bastille, then you have to watch this. Even if you're not, if you just like their music, then watch it and you will totally fall for them. Sam, I remember them covering I Will Survive last year. Dan's got a great set of pipes. He has got a great set of pipes. And such a poignant track for this time we're living in from Dean in Norwich. And morning, Sam. Bastille absolutely smashed that version of I Will Survive. I love it from Ben in Manchester.
And because I have the mental age of a 7-year-old, when you asked Dan, is any song in the world improved by adding an orchestra to it? And he said, well, I don't know why, but Baby Shark has just popped into my head. Guess what I Googled?
Go on.
The National Symphony Orchestra plays Baby Shark.
What is the chance of that? So, did he say that because he'd heard that, or was he literally just say Baby Shark off the top of his head?
I just did orchestral version Baby Shark.
And it popped straight up?
That popped up.
Hey, Sam, it's 4 a.m. for me, but I had to set the alarm clock so I could listen to your chat with Dan. I'll have a quick snooze before I head off to college at 7 a.m. from Alex in Mexico. Tuning into it from Mexico. Alex, bless you, thank you. And listen, ReOrchestrated, Bastille ReOrchestrated. Search for it, find it, watch the trailer, you'll watch the whole lot. It's fabulous.